Posing your character, you should look for clarity, appeal, and strong mechanics. All these things are necessary, so let's try to break them down in a bit more detail. Clarity refers to how clearly the pose reads to the audience. As the animator, you want to communicate your intention quickly and efficiently. If the viewer is unsure or confused about what they see or about what's happening, they'll lose interest and tune out. The audience needs to be able to read what the character is doing and what the character is feeling. Clear silhouette is crucial for this. Always check your silhouette to make sure the pose reads clearly. Can you tell where the arms are attached to the torso? Or do the antennae and ears appear separate? Can we see the fingers? If part of the character gets lost in silhouette, it may be difficult to clearly see what's going on. Make use of negative space to clearly show the position of the arms and legs. Notice how the hands all bunch together and it's unclear what each arm is doing. Without some negative space around the elbow, it's difficult to tell which arm is which in the silhouette. The focus of this project is to show a clear change of motion in the character. Change of motion is a trick animators use to create the illusion of life. Showing emotion can help the audience to empathize with your character. So, how do we show emotion? Despite what you might assume, it's not all in the face. The face is just icing. The entire body should demonstrate the character's emotion. The position of the feet, the curve of the spine, the weight shift, the pose in the hands, and many other things all work together to reinforce the emotion. For animation purposes, we can break down the emotions into 6 basic emotions: sadness, happiness, anger, fear, surprise, and disgust. Please really examine these emotions and think about what goes into conveying them to your audience. Thinking leads to emotion, and emotion leads to action. Remember that the emotion change is the focus of this project. However, if the character just immediately shifts from one emotion to another, it feels fake and forced.
I'm not even supposed to be here today!
Show the character thinking. Give them a chance to process what has happened before making a decision and acting on that decision. What are you trying to show with the character's thinking? Is he scheming about how he's going to get bubblegum out of the machine? Or is he imagining just how good the food on the table will taste once it hits his mouth? Or maybe he's remembering how much it cost to replace that lost phone. Creating appeal is quite simple. It is designing the pose so that it's interesting and engaging to the audience. Stiff, centered poses look static and uninteresting. Show some flexibility when posing. Avoid stiff, straight spines. Even a character's neutral pose should be interesting and say something about the character. Push the line of action in the character's pose. Check the curves and contours of the body to see how the spine should bend, tilt, and rotate. Should the character be thrusting his chest out or bending over? Consider incorporating the arms, tail, antenna, or ears into the line of action. These can all make your pose stronger. Be dynamic with your posing. Reversing the line of action at important points in the scene, such as the change of emotion, can add contrast and make the pose stand out even more. A strong line of action is vital to creating strong, appealing pose. The line of action is the imaginary line flowing through the character, emphasizing the character's movement. This makes your poses more dynamic and interesting. When the line of action is just a straight line, the pose is stiff and boring. If the line of action is too broken or disjointed, the pose looks weaker and uncomfortable. You can find many resources about line of action online by doing a quick search. We recommend examples by Preston Blair, but you're sure you can find many other great artists out there demonstrating great lines of action. No one needs to see a T-pose in a scene. This is all kinds of bad. If you avoid these things, you can make more appealing pose for the character. Contrapposto is an Italian term used in visual art that means counterpose. This refers to the figure shifting his weight over one foot, causing the hips and shoulders to tilt and create a more dynamic pose. You may have seen this principle in famous sculptures such as Michelangelo's David. Choosing to shift the weight over one foot creates a more engaging pose. The hips tilt due to the weight being supported on one foot, and then the torso has to counter tilt to offset what the hips are doing. Notice how the head's weight is over the supporting foot. This also helps break up the symmetry of the pose. Symmetry can make a pose feel robotic. This is sometimes referred to as twinning. Breaking up the symmetry of a pose can help direct the audience's eye to something specific. Watch out for the arms or antenna or ears twinning on poses. Vary up the position of your limbs to create asymmetry in your poses. The first pose has a line of action, but the hands are blocking the character's face and the weight is centered. The second pose is cleared up the silhouette of the hands so we can see the face clearly, and the tail is posed, but the weight is still an issue. Notice how the third one has the weight transferred over to one leg. We're looking for contrapposto in your poses. Rotate your feet out and wide for balance. This should be the first thing you do. Not only is it more appealing to break up the symmetry, but it helps the character balance. Poses should have appeal, and broken is not appealing. Rigs are flexible, but not unbreakable. You want to pose them with solid mechanics and appeal. When making your poses, you should also make sure they don't appear broken. Avoid posing your character in a way that appears unnatural for that character. An example of this would be making the character's toe touch his shin, or bending their spine sharply right in the middle. Use the controls for what they were designed. Misuse of the rig can cause problems in the movement of the in-betweens. In this example, we can see that the back foot isn't actually staying planted on the ground. This is going to cause foot sliding, a technical issue in the animation. Also, we have very sharp bends in the spine. While the character has a line of action, it's not very appealing because of it all happening on the upper control. Here we've corrected things, kept the foot planted so that it's no longer sliding, and we filtered the rotations on the back through all the controls instead of leaving it on just one control, so we have a much smoother line of action in the body. Strong mechanics refers to the laws of basic physics. Make sure your character is obeying the laws of gravity. Should your character fall over because he's off balance? Have you considered how the character's skeleton should be moving? If the arm is raised, has the torso been rotated to correspond to the arm movement? If the leg is forward, has the hip been rotated as if the leg was being pulled by the hip? If the character picks his foot up, it causes the hips to tilt. This is how we get the curve in the spine on the passing pose of a walk. This also creates contrapposto as the torso counter-rotates. Remember, when the foot lifts up, the hips have to shift over the supporting leg. If you just pick the foot up without shifting the weight, the character would fall over. Bodies are complex machines, and when one part of the body moves, it has effects on the rest of the body, particularly those connected directly to it. This is why it looks awkward and unappealing when a character has isolated movement. Isolated movement, or freezing, refers to either a part of the character's body remaining frozen in place while the rest of the character moves, or when only a few body parts move while the rest of the character remains motionless. For example, if your character is raising his hand, an inexperienced animator might just translate the arm up. But that's not how our bodies work. Every movement is driven by or drives the motion of nearby body parts. The action itself might start in the character's hips as he anticipates to gather the energy to do the action. The rising arm will work with the upper torso and the shoulder. Nothing in the body acts alone. Even if the movement is small and subtle, avoid leaving body parts frozen. So remember, the pose is key to showing emotion. Tail, antenna and ears, and fingers can all portray emotion even in silhouette. The face cannot. The pose is not a good pose if you left these things out. Use the pose to help direct the audience's eye. Keep the silhouette clear, avoid symmetry, use strong mechanics, and include, wherever possible, contrapposto and a strong line of action.